Congressman Allen West, who serves on the Republican Study Committee and the House Armed Services Committee, is joining us now on this as well. Congressman, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
Now, the details of this are just coming out. As I said, we're going to hear from the Homeland Security in a little while. But what's your initial reaction to what you've heard so far?
Well, this just came across my BlackBerry about 20 minutes ago as I was coming down to this studio, and it reminds me of a very important maxim that says surprises are only for birthdays. So the fact that we are getting this, we're not in session, I think this is once again an example of executive branch or administrative overreach to have an unelected bureaucrat and Janet Napolitano coming out about a policy decision which will affect residency here in the United States of America. That's why we have oversight committees, and this should have been brought up as legislation within the Homeland Security Committee, both in the House and Senate. It should have been debated there. It should have gone through a process whereby it was refined and amended and then brought up before the House floor and also to the Senate floor for final approval. That's how we do business in the United States of America. We have representative government, and I think right now this shows that we're getting away from government that's based upon the consent of the American people, and we're starting to live under a rule by edict or executive order.
Well, you bring up some great points, and no doubt the Homeland Security Committee will to speak out about this as well, and we'll see what the overall congressional reaction is. But let's go to the issue itself for a moment, because Republicans have been somewhat divided on this issue as to whether or not children who are brought in illegally by their parents, and these children, have no say in the matter, should we grant them the right to work in the country legally under work permits and then potentially allow them to go through the process, just like everybody else does who enters the country and wants to enter the country, of pursuing citizenship?
Well, I think there's devils in the details, and that's why we should allow this to go through the legislative process through our committees, because I can start to ask questions about what's going to happen as far as their rights to vote. I mean, is this one of those backdoor opportunities to allow people in the next 5 months to get the opportunity to vote? Will we see the Janet Napolitano and the president come out with a new edict that said, since we allowed these people to be here legally, we're now going to allow them to have the opportunity to vote? So how far down the rabbit hole does this go? And that's the greatest concern, is that we have something that we really don't know how the details will flesh out. We just have this basic executive order, this basic rule that's been brought up from the administration. But the American people obviously are not allowed to have any type of input through their representatives that they send to Washington, D.C.
Well, that's a great point in terms of whether or not these people who gain work permits, how quickly that would happen, whether or not they'd have the ability to vote. Even if they don't, though, I would imagine that they have family members who could be influenced because of this decision, and that's a big issue. We talk about Colorado, you talk about New Mexico, the Latino vote in this country. Everybody's trying to influence that vote, and that is certainly going to be the backdrop of this decision.
Well, I can guarantee you that as we get toward the election, there's no doubt that people are going to the Hispanic vote, and I would be very interested to know how close are groups like LULAC and La Raza to this decision that is being made, and what type of influence and impact they had on this executive order, or how it's going to be handed out, being made today. And why is it being done at this point in time? Why have we not allowed a national debate on this issue to really get a sense about what the American people feel?
One place where there's been a big debate over this is in Florida. Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio have both been outspoken on the fact that they think that Republicans need to be a bit more open to ideas like this. What do you say to that?
Well, sure. We can be more open to ideas, but I think that we have a legislative process where those ideas are brought before the committee. You have members of Congress that can then provide amendments, as we have an open rule that's called regular order. So we have that process in place. But I also find it quite ironic that the state of Florida has been asking the Homeland Security Department under Janet Napolitano for the past year to help us in improving the integrity and cleaning up our voter rolls down here in Florida, and they have refused to do so. And now we see the Department of Justice bringing a lawsuit and asking Governor Rick Scott to stand down. So once again, I see this as something more so motivated by political expediency, really, than trying to do something that, through the legislative process, we can find a good solution to.
Well, I'd be interested to see if something does come forward in the Congress, you know, how you would vote on that and what your thoughts were on that as it comes through the process. But obviously the process is the most important thing to you at this